show. Spin Steve up, or is Steve going to spin Kyle down? I think it is going to be the former and not the latter. Yeah. Because we have a new Bongino rule in effect, and I'm so excited to hear that the talking points have been marched out, and we are all going to be on the same page about what is and what is not appropriate and how we can talk about what's going on. We have been instructed. Yesterday, I had the Bongino army, whatever the heck that is, just like a whole slew of retards that are online, and they let me know that in no uncertain terms, I am not allowed to talk about the FBI, the current director, or the deputy director. No further information, as we say in the intel world. We're going to have fun with this. I love it. I love it so much. You guys actually have no idea how much I love it. This is what I am all about. All right, before we get started, I'm going to remind you that things can get bad no matter who is in charge, and so you might as well prepare yourself up front. PrepareLikeKyle.com. Join my friends over at My Patriot Supply. If you are interested in protecting food security, that is a tangible asset that you keep inside of your house that can keep you ready. They've helped millions of Americans prepare for the worst case scenario, including my family. They have over 75,000 five-star reviews. I personally have the 3-month emergency food kit, and that is the one that is on sale right now. If you were to go to preparelikekyle.com, the first thing you'll see is that thing I have circled there. That is the deal. It's $200 off right now. It's a big discount, and I believe it's the same price that I ended up paying for mine. They don't offer these things very often. This is the last time I saw it. Was the last time we read it, which is when I actually bought it myself. It might have been really early on when we first started with them. It gives you over 2,000 calories a day per person, 3 months food supply. It's good tasting food. It lasts for 25 years. It ships for free. They have vertical integration, so they are the ones producing their own food, so they can do quality control, and you can get it in as little as 2 days. Take advantage of that deal at preparelikekyle.com. We cannot control what's going on in the world. We can't even control what the people that we thought were our friends might do. So, you guys want to take advantage of that? Hedge against uncertainty. It's a $200 discount right now for that limited time. Again, preparelikekyle.com. You're seeing on the website where you would go. Preparelikekyle.com. It's the first position thing that I have circled for you right there. Let's dive into this thing. Steve Friend, welcome to Friendly Friday. Well, maybe not so friendly.
Burn the ships, man. Are you ready for this thing?
What does burn the ships even mean? What does that mean, Steve Friend?
I think it's a derivative, or it's a saying that came from the conquistadors when they arrived on the shores and they were going to face whatever the challenges were, and they were worried about the men mutiny and saying, look, we have to go back. And they said, nope, we're just going to burn the ships so you have no other option than to go forward.
It means you're staging a landing and you're burning the boats behind you. There is no retreat.
Successful amphibious landing. Did you take the beach?
I know it, and I wasn't saying that on accident. Okay. Why did the FBI have to be grabbed aggressively by the horns from the first moment? What was the reason for this? And then we'll talk about why they didn't do it.
Because shock and awe is the only way that you can actually win. We have a proof of concept. We went to war for almost 2 decades in Afghanistan with a different philosophy, which was winning hearts and minds. And the fact of the matter is that there is just not enough people. There are not enough good men and women of the FBI, the rank and file, as they love to call them, who are willing to step forward. They are government employees that lick their finger, put it in the air, see where the winds go. Wherever the momentum is going, that's where they go, because they're solely concerned about keeping their jobs. And they might be doing good work. They might not have had the opportunity to come forward. But the fact of the matter is, it's just you and me and maybe a half dozen other guys with dad bods in this little life raft. And we've been going up against an aircraft carrier filled with people that just kept their heads down for 2.5 years.
The crazy thing is, we advocated for people that we thought understood the problem, and the only reason we thought they understood the problem is because they also articulated the problem. They said things that made us understand that they knew what was happening. Yeah?
Yes, that was what we went out on a limb for and are still hopeful for. Like, that's why we're pushing hard. We're not, it's not an optimal situation to be like criticizing your buddies and people you have a very high opinion of and you have good hopes for. Like, I want Dan Bongino and Kash Patel to go and do the thing that everybody wants them to do. I think we just have a disagreement with people, including in your chat, on the timeline that we expected that to be. Because when we talked to those guys, and unlike the people in the chat, we talked to those guys, they said things like day one getting it done.
Yeah. So, Steve, everybody is playing this game of the red herring. You know what the red herring is and the logical fallacy?
Yes, this is when you find something and assign the blame to it. It's sort of like a scapegoat.
It's like scapegoating. That's right. It's like, listen, everybody, these things take time. Those talking points have been marched out. It is quite obvious. If you guys are trying to say that you are alert, that you are awake and not woke, that you pay attention to what is going on, if you listen to the show, one of the things we do is we say, hey, have the talking points been marched out? Have we seen the political left say that this administration is in chaos? Have we seen the same word, this is the moment? Whatever it is that they seize on a phrase. And the red herring that is being trotted out right now, that is very obvious to me, is these things take time. That was yesterday's show. Sources say. Also fun.
Maryland man.
Right? Maryland man, Maryland dad. These things take time. Anonymous sources say these are all messaging ops, right? No doubt about it. And the funniest thing for me is when someone comes to me, and if you were going to get called up, you had a call the other day. What did they ask you? First of all, what was the outlet and what did they ask you to come and give commentary on?
I was asked to come on to Newsmax to talk about Russia bombing Ukraine in Kyiv.
Right. Is Newsmax this guy?
President Trump, after he got shot in Butler, Pennsylvania. I've seen this video 1,000 times.
Is that Newsmax? That's Greg Kelly?
Yeah, that's what they like to fill between the pocket catheter commercials. 1,000 times playing over and over the Butler assassination attempt video.
Airhead?
My
Empty?
experience. That seems to actually substantiate that assertion right there, yes.
He's worried about a guy pointing a rifle that's like on a 2D screen and imagines that all things in 2D are actually without depth in real life. Okay, so that's okay. So they asked you to come on Newsmax and they wanted you to talk about Russia?
Yes.
Ukraine?
Russia bombing Kyiv in Ukraine when I was out of the loop because I don't continually just refresh news websites. I didn't know that it had gone on, but it's certainly not in my lane. Like if you were going to go to people who had some level of foreign policy expertise or even military expertise to think like, hey, I know an FBI whistleblower who can comment on this. Like that seems like I'd be pretty far down the list. This guy arrested
hundreds of criminals on Indian reservations and was looking into child trafficking and pornography in Florida. I bet he probably knows about bombings in Kyiv right now.
I do have sources in place, right, that I live with.
You do live with somebody who would be a closer subject matter expert than you, but she was not the request, correct?
No, they did not want Madam Friend.
Okay. Now, I want you to also imagine that imagine you and me getting this email, because I'm getting it on social media. It's not the same thing as getting it in email, but it might as well be, because I know where it's coming from. And they're like, you can't talk about Dan Bongino or Kash Patel or the FBI because now it's our FBI. If there was one thing that somebody might call you up from, I don't know, Fox, Newsmax, the Kyle Seraphin show, the Brianna Morella show, if somebody was going to call you up and say, hey, something just happened with, what would that with be? That would be Steve Friend is going to come on the show to talk about it.
Just the FBI.
Just the FBI. Yeah, just
That's
the FBI.
exactly my subject matter expertise.
That turns out, yeah. And how many times did we talk about Chris Wray, the former director of the FBI, in, let's say, we've done 550 shows almost. We're coming up on 550. How many times do we talk about Ray, you think?
All the times. I mean, I don't think we've had a Friendly Friday episode prior to him leaving, and even post him leaving the FBI, where we didn't make some sort of reference to Chrissy Ray and the fact that he was not really an impressive human being and that he abused his jet privileges and just really was somebody, unless you saw his protective detail, you would think, well, he probably coaches his 8 and under girls soccer team to a below 500 record.
The thing that we all kind of agreed on was that the Bureau was dangerous, was it not? I mean, it did some really ugly things like violate the First Amendment and go after people that were decent human beings and went after Trump supporters, and you didn't want to be part of that. Like, are we on the same page with that?
Yes, and that's what we've been consistent about, and it had nothing to do with electoral politics. Now, it did benefit.
Or who was in charge,
people.
By the way? Because when Chris Wray stepped down, it wasn't like, hooray! It was like, oh, now Paula Bate is in charge. He's also a problem. When Paula Bate stepped down, there was Brian Driscoll, who theoretically was chosen by Trump and or whatever, the Trump team, right?
Yes,
there was
he was a problem that we called out right away because of his involvement with the Mar-a-Lago raid from the hostage rescue team standpoint.
Robert Cassane, same situation, came out of New York, also a problem. It seems like the people we called out were people who managed the Bureau And the reason we did so is because of this sort of like sense of betrayal that we had, right? Because you did what you were trained to do. I did what I was trained to do. I didn't know you when you did it, and you didn't know me, and we just did it independent of each other. And we were out there just saying, hey, stop doing this thing that this other guy used to know about too.
This is an agency that has betrayed you and that oath you took. And to this man or woman who stepped forward and disclosed this horrific information about the FBI targeting a legitimate conservative journalist, I applaud you. And another whistleblower has come forward. I applaud you as well, sir, ma'am, from the FBI, who came forward with this data. Folks, we are starting to see it. People are starting to take their constitutional oath seriously.
Weird. Were you one of those people too?
I was. Actually, the first media appearance that I had was on Dan Bongino's Saturday night show on Fox News in October of 2022. He gave me that opportunity, and I took it, and that was my first public involvement.
I feel like I helped set that up a little bit because I'd talked to Dan, you'd talked to Miranda Devine. We put our heads together sometime before your story goes live, my story goes live with Dan, and I was like, hey, get on this Fox show too. Done.
We did that, and we were providentially in touch with each other within hours of our stories becoming public on the same day, not choreographed. You and I had no overlap, and you've had overlap with just about every single person and every single thing in the country, apparently, because you're Wolverine, you've been alive forever. Except me, which was amazing, but providential in that regard.
Yes.
And we've been nothing if not consistent on our messaging and our criticisms. And I think it's actually to our credit, the fact that we independently cited the exact same things when we came forward with our concerns. We talked about the Holocaust Memorial Museum, the fact that you have training about the weaponization and how it's incumbent on you to throw the flag. We both cited that. And I think I've said it before on your program, but it's worth mentioning again. When you did your sit down with Dan Bongino, the two-part podcast, I listened to it. I had my wife listen to it. She's not a podcast listener. She listened to about half of the first one and she turned it off and she said, I have to turn this off because it sounds just like you and I don't want to listen to it.
Oh, that's very nice. My wife would have listened to you. She would have listened to someone who sounded like me. But yeah, isn't that the thing? That's so crazy. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this slide here. Who's on the screen right now for the listeners that are just listening? They can't see what's coming up from Rift TV.
That's Director Kash Patel, Deputy Director Dan Bongino, and A-Dick Stephen Jensen.
Why is
the
he
Washington
A-Dick?
Field Office. There's the unintentional labeling, which again, I think is providential. He is A-Dick Stephen Jensen, Assistant Director in Charge, Washington Field Office.
Okay, and the A-Dick is in charge of all the sacks.
Yes.
Okay, we're having fun with it because it's Friday, but okay, seriously, that's actually
and
the org
underneath
chart,
them
folks.
are ASACs.
Yeah, ASACs. Yeah, so a dick runs sacks and ASAC. Why?
And
Why do
then
they
there
do
are
this to themselves?
units that need to have chiefs.
Yeah, the units need to have chiefs, obviously. So here's the story. Biden DOJ holdovers thrive. Threatened return of authoritarian crackdowns. This is a story written by Alicia Powell, who sent me to me, or Powell, her name is. FBI's new leadership is partying while Biden goons are still on the payroll. The surveillance state is locked, loaded, and still ready. She is not wrong. She just sent this to me, letting me know what was going on. And it's like, oh, okay. Once a shield against crime, the FBI has morphed into a weaponized force. It's got an $11 billion budget that has fueled a surveillance state that has crushed dissent. And one of the people who was involved in that, who was the section chief of the Domestic Terrorism Operations Section, DTOS. There's all these things. Come on now. All right. So he was in charge of DTOS. I actually had Ryan Riley reach out for a quote from NBC the other day because now the left wants to talk about what's wrong with the FBI, which, by the way, I'm consistent. I'll keep saying the same things I said to people on the right. I have no interest in the partisan part of it. It's irrelevant. I'll talk to the New York
long-standing
Times as well.
policy. If Rachel Maddow ever wants to have a conversation with me, I'm happy to do that because I will present factual information.
That's right. 100%. I don't mind who I talk to. I will continue to say the same thing. It's not about vengeance or vendettas. It's about trying to protect what Americans should expect from their FBI. It's very easy, actually, to say, as long as you're consistent, you don't ever have to worry about this. And he said, what's your take on DTOS? It sounds like they're trying to get rid of it at the FBI. By the way, I applaud that. If they are getting rid of DTOS and that actually happens, great. Freaking great. Interesting that you took the guy who used to be in charge of it and made him in charge of the most powerful public corruption investigation organization. That seems problematic. But if they got rid of DTOS, he goes, what's your comment on it? I said, it's basically a walking violation of the First Amendment.
I agree with that. And look, back to the timeline, which we're going to be criticized for because these things take time. I am not pushing back on the overall renovation will take time. It's not a day one fix, but it's piece by piece. And a day one fix could be, hey, we eliminated the domestic terrorism operations section, DTOS. We eliminated it. Okay. But why are we hearing about that through Ryan Riley and his sources, as opposed to there being a public statement of this is a walking violation of the First Amendment? We recognize that as leadership coming in here. It's gone, fixed.
That's right. The other thing I'm hearing is a bunch of people, and I'm going to name them by name. Mike Davis is running out there. I've seen Savvy, I don't know her real name or whatever, but Political Savvy, who's like a pretty lady that's pro-Trump. She seems very nice, but like they're all on the same marching orders. I'm seeing Jim Verdi, the former producer of the Dan Bongino show, who I assume now is an expert on the FBI because his buddy works there, even though I would suggest that you and I know more about the FBI than Dan does still. Mike Davis, who's buddies with Julie Kelly, people came up and actually tagged me and said, the Viceroy says the following. And I was like, you just unironically referred to a regular American citizen as the Viceroy. Please go away and figure out like whatever is, you're either high on trustium or hopium, and both of them are gross. Here is Mike Davis using your talking points and my talking points. I know that I'm the one who started saying these things, and I never saw him say it before. He's clearly listening to the things that we're sharing because the things we're saying are true. He's talking about intel agencies and law enforcement being one and being weaponized against the American populace. This is my message, period. And by the way, it's still doing that. That's what it's built to do. Here's Davis talking to Laura Logan. Luckily, Laura Logan actually wore something that covered up the pontoons that she's implanted on herself. So here we go.
When you use intel agencies and law enforcement to illegally go after your political opponents for non-crimes, that is the definition of a conspiracy against rights, a very serious federal civil rights felony under 18 USC section 241. And so I would say to all of those people you just named and many, many others, lawyer up.
Oh, freaking lawyer up, baby. That's his thing, by the way. I went and looked for Mike Davis saying lawyer up, and there's like multiple examples of Mike Davis doing the lawyer up routine. There are dozens and dozens of tweets. It needs to be that Liz Cheney lawyers up, and it needs to be that Merrick Garland lawyers up, and it needs to be that Norm Eisen lawyers up. Everyone needs to lawyer up, apparently. Except Tom Fitton actually seems to understand what's going on there. He's like, hey, we asked for the Epstein files. They said, no, screw them. Where are the Epstein files? Where are the Epstein files? Do you think that they're ever going to punch that out?
No, it's been proven. And this is why I go back to the shock and awe versus the hearts and minds. They tried to go in to win the hearts and minds, and immediately they saw pushback because James Dennehy resisted them from the New York field office. He was a dick in the New York field office and said, I'm not handing those over to the United States Attorney General or the FBI director. And what happened? Oh, he got to retire and collect his pension and then walk out of the building with a bagpipe ceremony and a color guard and hundreds of employees standing by giving him a standing ovation. That's what he received. That's why Hearts and Minds cannot work. And it was the first indicator that they didn't do the amphibious assault that was necessary. The shock and awe, the heads on pikes, metaphorical, that we needed to have happen, didn't happen. And look, you might have an accident happen with shock and awe. You might have collateral damage. You might wind up removing a good person from duty. But you know what the advantage of that is? They can come back. It's not like it's a actual kinetic action on the beaches here. We're talking metaphorically about trying to take over this agency. But instead, the presumption was we'll go in there and we'll basically crib off of Pete Hegseth's notes, because Pete Hegseth, who has a combat infantry badge and actually was in combat, and it's a completely different culture in the military, we're going to do the exact same thing on the presupposition that the FBI is the exact same culture, which it isn't. It's an erroneous assertion. And we're going to do that, and then the good men and women are going to go and do, and they're going to prioritize rigorous obedience to the Constitution, and that's not going to happen. And it can't happen because they didn't do the first day fixes, which were very easy, like eliminating integrated program management quota system, which are still in play, which I had buddies call me this week about saying I'm getting a hard time about getting disruption stats, and it's the same thing. Morale is lower than it was before.
I'm not exaggerating. I got a text message from an FBI agent today that said, I think Cat Turd might be a better deputy director. That's not good for regular people who are excited about these guys coming in. I had another completely, someone I don't even know personally, share two notes, one from a retired agent out in the Phoenix area that said, Dan visited the Phoenix field office and the troops were not impressed. So you've lost that. And the reason why is because you didn't do the one thing that everybody who's working at the brick level understood, which is the thing that we said. The red herring is arrests take time. The reality is suspensions take almost no time. When they tell you that you're going to be suspended, I was out in hours and I found out they took my clearance 3 days later. So my timeline goes as follows. Investigation opened on April 15th, then Holy Saturday, then Easter Sunday, then Monday I lose my badge and my gun. That's the 18th. And on the 21st, I was called in and they had revoked my clearance and I never went back to the FBI again. That was less than a week, but it was hours in real time of actual work. And
sure, because it involved a weekend and a holiday. And
right.
Look, they probably went in on Easter because they wanted to get paid holiday pay. Let's be honest about it.
That's true.
Like, look, you were on their radar already.
That's right.
I was not. I was an exemplary employee who had received a on the spot award for the work that I had done. And then all of a sudden I came out of the woodwork and raised my concerns, brought my reasonable concern forward. So my timeline might be more reasonable to expect. 30 days. 30 days.
I had on the spot awards from the woman. Not only did I have on the spot awards, I actually had what's called a Category D cash award. I asked my buddy, he goes, they used to call those QSIs. Do you remember the QSI?
And then they got rid of them. Yes.
Okay. So what is a QSI for people who are listening and don't know?
It's
I might put you on the screen for a second.
When you're a government employee, you're on the GS pay scale, right? So if you come in as an FBI agent, you're a GS 10, step 1, and then there's a way that you matriculate through that. It's a very standardized promotion process. A QSI, it basically bumps you up 1 year in the progression of your career. So you benefit from that for the rest of your career. You're a year ahead, you're making more money, and then the next promotion comes in, you get it sooner. So it's a quarterly, a quality step increase. That's what I believe it stands for.
So, Steve, I'm throwing this on the screen awkwardly here. This is Kyle Seraphin's employment actions. And what people can do, they probably can't see it, but I'll post it later because it's fun. I got $500 cash awards, $250 cash awards, $500 cash awards in 2021. The best one is in 2020, given to me by Jennifer Moore. I had a $3,000 cash award. You ever heard of a $3,000 cash award?
Never.
That's what they did to replace the QSI.
All right.
So I was essentially... That was a year worth of promotion, and it should have bumped me up in theoreticals, but it doesn't obviously work that way because they couldn't let you keep it. But I got $3,000 awarded by the woman who actually signed off on taking away my security clearance. That's how fast they turn on you. Okay, very, very, very simple. That's what needed to be done. The red herring is that we got to wait because microwavable steak. Here's Sean Fairs, who I like, by the way. Sean is not a dumb guy. But I don't know what he knows about the FBI, and neither does he, if you're going to be really honest.
On this criticism of Kash Patel and Dan Bongino at the FBI, I understand being frustrated with the pace. I'm an impatient person. I like when things move quickly. But in this case, things can't move that quickly. That's just the way government works. And that's the point, right? I mean, it's not a television show. And I think that's what everybody has to understand. We're so used to instant gratification. I mean, if that's the case, I would think that most of you are microwaving your steaks, right? Because it's faster. But no, it doesn't taste that good. And that's the point.
The point is it's got to taste good. And look, there's a longer clip. He does 4 minutes. I'm not doing him injustice, by the way, by playing that. And I'm not mad at him.
We're not talking about prosecutions. We're talking about policy changes that are within the power of the director and the deputy director to take immediate action on. And if you do that, then you're going to get a lot more grace from people, a lot more patience from people when they say, hey, look, the larger problems or the putting handcuffs on these government gangsters, yes, we have to make sure a criminal investigation is really buttoned up, and we're going to give you that latitude to do that. But I haven't seen the structural changes at all. All I'm seeing is...
Let me tell you that there is a structural change, and I have it for you. Because as of right now, I found out last night that there is a new Bongino rule. Can you tell me the Bongino rule? We're going to do a sponsor because I'm all fired up and I'm drinking coffee, so we're going to do a coffee read. And then we'll do the new Bongino rule. What's the old Bongino rule, as well as you understand?
Wait 72 hours when something big happens to let it breathe and let more facts come in, because the rush to be first, you're often erroneous.
Okay, that's fair. Yep, I think that's exactly what it is. So let's talk about Blackout Coffee because I'm fired up right now. Folks, I've been telling you about Blackout Coffee for a few months. I just filled my cup before we went live, and obviously you can tell I am rip-roaring at this moment. If you haven't tried it, we'll break it down for you. It's not another coffee company. They're a company that's built on hard work and grit and American values, and I buy them that way. I buy them in the 5-pound bags. I don't mess around. Use promo code Kyle when you do. Listen, they're running a 64,000 square foot warehouse where they're roasting every single bean, including the hundreds that are in my house now, or maybe the thousands. I don't know how you do it in poundage. They're packing them themselves. Their employees employing Americans. They are not dealing with corporate nonsense or wokeness. It's damn good coffee made by people who give a damn. And again, as I said, when I buy it in bulk because I don't like to run out of things. I got a big bag. I got a backup bag. I got one of them sitting behind me just in case it's there. Blackout Coffee isn't just about making great cups of coffee. It is about supporting the American dream. They built a company the right way. There's no shortcuts. There's no woke nonsense. There's no weak beans. And you can tell I'm fired up. I'm rolling pretty fast and hard. Hard work are real values. American people who give a damn about Americans. If you want coffee that gets you moving, maybe not as fast as me, but fast enough, go to blackoutcoffee.com/KYLE. Again, blackoutcoffee.com/Kyle. You'll get 20% off your first order. You can keep the American dream alive. You'll support real coffee companies, and you can stop drinking weak junk. Get your day started off right. I know you guys actually, many of you drink it yourselves because you shared it with me first. I like that. Are you ready? Because I've been kind of teasing this up, and I don't want to be that guy. I want to give you the new Bongino rule. Have you heard it?
No, this is going to be fresh. Coming in cold.
Brianna Morello, friend of ours. Jim Verdi, someone I've interviewed. I don't dislike Jim. I think Jim is a really nice guy. There's a lot of overlap in Jim's radio career and my father's radio career. Came out of a radio family in so much as when I was a kid, I got bounced around from major radio markets all the time. That was my dad's gig. So they had bosses in common, friends that my dad had that ended up being Jim's boss, et cetera, et cetera. The only thing I will say is that Jim, for a guy who runs a very big radio show and podcast, he has a garbage internet connection. Or maybe it's Brianna that so the audio is not as good as it could be. But a new Bongino rule. Take a deep breath, everybody. Hold it off. I'm doing the airborne the knife hand thing. So yeah, pinch it off. There we go.
I'm saying we're going to apply a new Bongino rule to this because you're talking about turning probably the most massive aircraft carrier in the world, which takes a long, long time. New Bongino rule is to wait 6 to 8 months before you see results. I'm thinking you're going to see him sooner, but you have to give him time because you have no idea how many people are working against these two guys. People have texted me personally, agents that I know going, it's unbearable here. These people are actively working against them. I've seen a text exchange of people saying that they're going to work against the administration not to implement what they want. You're talking about agents on the job right now who want to interfere with basically upholding the law. And it takes a lot of time. And think about the amount of cases that they're having to work right now. They've gotten a lot of stuff. I mean, it's not just the drugs and the fentanyl stuff. Yes, I'm sure they're looking at the J.
Are you okay? That's as much as I can tell. 6 to 8 months is the new Bongino rule. You have to wait because the agents are working against them. Who's in charge of those agents? Who runs the FBI?
Dan Bongino, Cash Patel. So they outrank all of them?
They can't get rid of anybody.
They can't. It's not within their power, except it is within their power. And
it's
look,
called insubordination. They will throw you out on your ass. You don't want to do it? You're gone. You're suspended right now. You'll get paid. This happened in DHS, by the way. When they came and took over, I had someone email me. They're like, hey, by the way, it was very common that when new administrations would come in, the senior executives that were not on the same page would get assigned to sit in an office and do nothing. And
did just be the supervisor of a broom closet because they didn't want to have the lawsuit or threats of that. And look, this is something that they're not stupid. Cash Patel and Dan Bongino are not idiots. Nope. They're ignorant because they're not from the inside. So they're being told things by people on the inside of the FBI who are trying to thwart them that they don't have the authority or power to do this, that, or the other, when in fact they do. And if they don't, there are workarounds for them that clearly that we're aware of, that they're unaware of, which is Navy v. Egan, suspend security clearances, make them unpaid, indefinitely suspended for as long as time. I mean, what is Garrett O'Boyle on day 944? I mean, maybe we'll adjudicate whether or not you are a threat to national security because you're attempting to thwart the current deputy director's initiatives. We'll get to that in 32 months.
Do you know how I know that they actually do know the solution? How do I know, Steve?
You know everything.
Because I told them the solution. I'm showing you guys right here. On the left-hand side, closest to me, is a group chat with Cash Patel and Steve Friend and Garrett O'Boyle. That's it.
Can I highlight one particular, for those listening and not viewing, on the left-hand column on the 1, 2, 3, fourth one down, Saturday, November 3rd. That was 16th. A group call at 8:27 p.m. That was Cash Patel calling us after he was nominated by
That's right.
Donald Trump to say thank you. He called us within the first
November
hour.
30th.
Like, it was
Look
a
at the
total
dates,
class
people.
move.
Okay, totally was. On the other side are the calls for just me. They're mostly in the mornings. They're the first thing he did in the morning. He woke up and called me and said, if you have 5 minutes with Donald Trump, how do you pitch fixing the FBI? What does it look like? And every single time I told him, you need to cut off the head of the snake by getting rid of the senior executives. You need to gut it. And Dan Bongino said it on his own show over and over and over again. He regularly and repeatedly stated the simple fact that you have to go after people who are in the management, in the quote-unquote leadership. You have to get them out. It's the only way. There's no other way to do it. You have to get them out of there. And so who are those people? And what do they look like? I'll tell you who they're not. They're not Steve Jensen. That's not possible. You can't have Steve Jensen do it. How about
Steve
this
Jensen
guy?
is a warlord.
Who's this dude? Yeah, the J6 warlord. Who's this dude?
That's Spencer Evans, who is the current special agent in charge of Las Vegas, who, it was my understanding, he was removed and then reinstated somehow. I don't know how that mechanically worked out, but prior to that position, he was back at headquarters rejecting all of the people's requests for reasonable accommodation against getting the coronavirus vaccine.
Listen, we're just going to promote Steve Jensen, J6 warlord. It's reform, but with the J6 guy, the one who actually defined them as domestic terrorists. How do you make that happen? This is why every single time I see an opportunity, I'm going to push pictures of Steve Jensen right next to these guys. They have to own this decision. They made that decision, and if they think they can't fix it, they're wrong. Here's another big problem. This was just shared with me yesterday. Mark Haupt is appealing the dismissal of a lawsuit seeking damages for the FBI raid that traumatized his family. You'll remember, he's a Catholic father. He's been on this program, I think, twice now. He's a really nice guy. He ran for Congress unsuccessfully against Fitzpatrick, who is
an FBI agent,
a former FBI agent who got completely suckered in there, right? So that all happened, and he put a lawsuit in and said, you guys came in. He was acquitted. They had no business going after it, and Pam Bondi's crew basically dismissed it because DOJ is still fighting that lawsuit. Oh, my God. Who's that?
Oh, no. That's a big cat. Sarah Linden? Sarah Linden taking a knee.
Sarah Linden, if you're watching, you know what's going on here. Sarah Linden has entered the chat. She is moving aggressively around inside the FBI. Does she still work for the FBI?
She does. She's actually been promoted several times since taking a knee.
Several times.
She now runs Russian counterintelligence when she was taking a knee for BLM in 2020 with a mask on her face outdoors and her back foot in a plantar flex position, so she couldn't even get up from that non-tactical position very quickly. And was she one of the ones that also got the gift card?
She got the gift card. That's right. And a hug from Chris Wray. I showed that picture yesterday. Why are all the people that are in that photograph, which I guarantee you a photographer from the Washington field office has all the names of the people in the photograph. They all got listed by the FBI Agents Association. Do you know how I know there's a real problem right now? Actually, I feel like this is the one where I think this might be. I got multiple clips of of Mike Davis making excuses and tell people to lock it up. Let's do this one because I think he talks about one guy whose name is really, really particularly important, talking about the FBI Agents Association. Let's give this. He's on Bannon here talking about
somebody has to lawyer up.
Somebody has to lawyer up.
And how his administration has to comport itself. Am I inaccurate that, Mike, or are you already seeing this?
You're always right, Steve. And I would say this, after these Democrats tried to bankrupt, imprison, take off the ballot, and take off Trump's head, I think the American people delivered their verdict last night, and it was an overwhelming victory for President Trump. It's an overwhelming victory for his America First agenda. We're going to pick up several Senate seats. We're going to pick up several House seats, as Alex DeGrosse from Elise Stefanik's office just laid out. I think we can tell these Democrats to stuff it. It is Trump's agenda now, and we're going to enact that agenda on behalf of the American people who put President Trump back in office. And that means there are going to be serious reforms to our intel communities and law enforcement agencies because they have been politicized and weaponized against Trump, his top aides like you, Steve, who went to prison, Peter Navarro, who went to prison, his January 6 supporters who were politically persecuted. According to the Supreme Court's Fisher decision, they sicked the FBI after parents outraged by gender chaos in schools and the resulting rapes and bathrooms. They even went after pro-life Christians. A 75-year-old Christian woman gets sent to prison for praying at an abortion clinic while they give amnesty to Joe Biden and Hunter Biden.
Yeah, so lawyer up. I mean, I'm just saying the things that they know are because people came out and told them. Will there be another whistleblower that comes forward when these things happen again under the next regime?
No, not at all, because they saw what happened when you had a change in administration. It didn't matter who the president was, Republican, Democrat. Didn't matter who the FBI director was. Didn't matter who the Attorney General of the United States was. You had the transition happen, and Garrett O'Boyle, 944 days, unpaid, indefinitely suspended forever. So that message will be clear, which at this point, you have to, there's not a benign and innocent reason for it. You have to assume that that is intentional. It creates the chilling effect. And as an aside, someone needs to get Mike Davis some blackout coffee because he is speaking at like 0.75
I
speed.
know it. I didn't realize how slow it was. Here's another one. I think he's going to mention Norm Eisen, and I'm going to tell you why that's important in just a second. So, folks, if you don't know who Norm Eisen is, just hold on to your hats for a second. Here's Mike Davis, I think, recommending a lawyer up on this one. I think if I let that clip run longer, but I don't have the patience, he would have eventually got to lawyer up. That's why I pulled it.
Why is Norm Eisen seeking blanket pardons, right? You would get a pardon if you've committed a crime, and if you haven't committed a crime, why would you need a pardon? And so that's number one. And they know that they know what they have done here is criminal. They know that they have politicized and weaponized our intel agencies, law enforcement at every level, federal, New York, Georgia, Arizona. They know that they have politicized the January 6th committee. They got Liz Cheney. The evidence shows that Liz Cheney got Cassidy Hutchinson to change her sworn testimony. That's perjury, subornation of perjury, obstruction of justice, witness tampering, conspiracy. And the broader problem for the Democrats is this is all a coordinated political hit against Trump, his top aides like you, Steve Bannon, and Peter Navarro, who went to prison, his supporters on January 6th, who were politically persecuted, according to the Supreme Court's Fisher ruling back in June. This is a criminal conspiracy, and they've done this at many different levels. When you politicize and weaponize intel agencies, law enforcement, congressional committees to go after your political enemies for non-crimes, that is a criminal conspiracy against rights under 18 U.S.C. Section 241. And I would say this, maybe it hasn't been organized because congressional Republicans are inept.
Cool. So the congressional people are inept. How about the people that have executive authority? Let's say, like, I don't know, like a Pam Bondi or like a Kash Patel or a Dan now that's sitting in the deputy director. You'd think that those people have the ability to do something.
They can alter the policy. Look, I brought a whistleblower complaint to the Office of the Inspector General, and they wrote back to me that they weren't going to take up my complaint because in their opinion, the FBI director has wide latitude and discretion as to how he interprets the policy of the FBI because it isn't a legislation. It's not a law. So they can just change the policy whenever they want. They have that autonomy to do. And to even speak to what Mike Davis is saying, like, who needs a preemptive pardon? You need a preemptive pardon if you're fearful of a weaponized government finding a man and then looking for a crime. And if they can't find the crime, then they just invent a crime.
That's right.
Which is what we've spoken about under President Biden and President Trump, because we have that legitimate concern. The system is itself broken, and that's what we've been advocating for. That is why we are rooting so hard for Kash Patel and Dan Bongino to make the necessary reforms so that nobody should ever have to seek a preemptive pardon again.
Here's the crazy thing. Norm Eisen, who was one of the attorneys running the first impeachment and trial of Donald Trump, which happened in 2020, right? Is that right? I think it was 2020. Norm Eisen also is the attorney that the FBI Agents Association, who is chirping in the ear of Kash Patel and telling him that Driz is the Riz, and what else was the story? They were
Brian
like,
Driscoll, he's got promoted. Great guy who withheld the J6 list.
And what would Driz do and all this other bullshit that was like thwarting the Trump agenda, which was saying, hey, tell us who the people were that were going after very specific January 6th cases, who were driving these things, and the FBI was refusing to turn it over. Norm Eisen is the attorney that the FBI Agents Association hired to come in. They didn't go get some like J6 attorney. They didn't go get some like random person who just like happens to work in government law. They found the guy who specifically hated Donald Trump enough to run lawfare against him regularly. And they also got Mark Zaid, who's also a loony leftist that called for Donald Trump to be arrested with no trial. I think that's correct. Double check that, whatever. The fact of the matter is,
also get a woman who was calling
posts
for like the execution of Supreme Court justices as well?
Correct. Yeah, there were 3 major attorneys. The 2 men I remember, the woman I do not. But at the end of the day, they chose wild, hardcore leftists to represent the FBI Agents Association. And why would that be? Because they align with the people that want to represent them. If you've ever gone out there and tried to get a left-wing attorney to represent you, it won't happen, Steve. They're not going to represent Steve Friend for any reason. Period. No matter, even if it's about the money.
If they're a leftist, not a chance. One of my attorneys was a Democrat initially. Dan Meyer represented me, and he was himself a whistleblower attorney. And I thought that lended a tremendous amount of credence because I had Empower Oversight, which Jason Foster was a staffer for Chuck Grassley. He's a Republican. And you had Dan Meyer, who was a Democrat, like a Clintonian-style Democrat. And they worked on my behalf because they said, look, we don't even need to agree with you on your reasonable concern. The fact is you brought it forward and you did it the right way. And that's good enough for us because we're actual lawyers who are interested in the process.
That's all it is. We're not the only people that are seeing this not work. So I don't want people to think that this is Kyle Seraphin and Steve Friend, like operating in a void. I'm going to give you a couple of different examples. The first one is Jesse Kelly, who I almost always agree with. Not every time. I know he's a little bit concerned. He's going to mention Pam Bondi because he's not friends with Pam Bondi. He's friends with Dan. So you're not going to hear a Dan call out. I think that's what's going on here. But let's just put him on the screen and let him talk.
I feel like we're being played a little. Played. Here's what I mean by that. Who's been arrested?
Oops.
In the government. All the abuse of you and your liberty.
It's still red herring.
The insane criminality in the government. It didn't just happen by a blob, by a fictional person. People did this to you. People with names. People with addresses. People who I'm assuming have wrists that you can put handcuffs on. I get these news conferences all the time now. Look at this drug bust. Look at our task force. I'm still waiting for the government people to go to prison.
Why do you think the Epstein information should be released?
He's also
because it was a scandal. It was a powerful person who seemingly got away with serious crimes. He's connected to powerful individuals. It's not just an American scandal, it's an international scandal. The poor Queen of England was having to deal with her son, Prince Andrew, getting caught up in this abuse, it looks like. And so people want to know who else was involved. They want to know the full scope of it and how he got away with abusing more women for years, despite the feds having him dead to rights.
That's the question. Now, that one should be a layup. So should the pipe bomber, by the way, which 5 weeks in office is more than enough time. Trump's been in there since January 20th. In theory, they could be like, hey, you can have the DAG, the Deputy Attorney General, just go, hey, do the case that you were already working. You think that the FBI agents out there were not actually working on that case?
Of course they were working on it.
Of course they were working on it.
They have some, they can make a down payment into escrow and buy themselves a little bit more time and latitude and grace and support by doing the structural reforms that can immediately happen, but also being transparent with things that are not going to jeopardize ongoing investigations. They could say, look, we've got a task force. We're going after the Epstein clients. We've got 250 subjects. We can't compromise it, guys. We're sorry. But we can open up the books on the Butler assassination because that guy's dead. There's no expectation of privacy. And the victim's the president.
Let me put a pin in that real quickly. What if I could raise you a down payment and give you the full Monty of just trust me, bro, justice is coming? Would that be okay? I want people to watch Steve Bannon's face in this. I want you to watch Steve Bannon's face, and maybe something develops out of this later. I don't want to say too much right now, but watch the face hold on, let me paraphrase this clip up front. Are you ready? This is what it sounds like. Mike Davis tells Steve Bannon that Kash Patel and Dan Bongino told Pam Bondi to tell him to tell the audience that justice is coming. This is what high school looks like when grown-ups are doing.
I just had several meetings at the Trump Justice Department. I've met with the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, the Deputy Attorney General, Todd Blanche, the acting number 3, Chad Mizell, and the incoming number 3, Stanley Woodward. And I want to reassure the War Room posse that they are very much on top of what's happening in our country, right? And just because you're not seeing criminal indictments right now does not mean they're not coming. They are very much incoming.
I want you to go back to that team because that's pretty impressive. This is not President Trump's first term Justice Department. Walk through who the players are, starting with Pam.
So Pam Bondi is the Attorney General. She is a rock solid constitutionalist. She's bold. She's fearless. She's not being flashy about what she's doing behind the scenes. Okay. She is very much doing things behind the scenes.
We love Pam.
Yes.
Okay, who else?
She's great.
She's great.
Todd Blanche.
Fabulous.
The Deputy Attorney General.
Took the president on as a client when nobody else would touch it.
And got ostracized for it. Now these law firms are scrambling for Todd's blessing.
Yes.
Now
Okay.
Appeal to authority.
She is a rock-solid constitutionalist that is a fan of red flags law. Look, I don't know much about Pam Bondi, and I don't really care. I know she's got some bad records when it comes to guns, and I'm almost a single-issue voter on that. Look at that face for me is what Steve Bannon's got going on. He's just like, bro, why are you coming on here?
The total appeal to authority. I have spoken to these people who are impressive, and they've assured me
how many of them there are. Listen, Steve, I have so many people that I've talked to. Listen to all the people that I have talked to. And if I can name all the people that I know, then you know that you can just trust me, bro.
Or you know that I can get to the commercial break without having to actually answer a question.
No question answered whatsoever. No need to answer the question, because why would you need to answer the question when in fact all you got to do is keep saying these things over and over again. There was one guy that actually seemed to get it, though. And I remember listening and going like, yeah, thank God. We're not talking about arrests. We're talking about personnel is policy, and you got to get rid of them. And there was this guy, and he was just like he was totally locking in on the actual problem.
It is time for total personnel warfare. Do you understand that? Everybody has to go. Anyone in the justice system, a United States attorney, an AUSA, an assistant United States attorney, that's what we call them in the system, the intake AUSA, who decides, anyone who sniffed this case, touched this case, tweeted positively about this case, it is the president's full and final discretion to keep you hired in the DOJ. Pam Bondi, soon to be President Trump, soon to be Attorney General, everybody's got to go. It is time for, say it with me, folks, throw it in the chat right now. Total personnel warfare.
Total personnel warfare. I'm for it. Okay. Where did he go? What happened to him?
I think that he changed his rule. I mean, it went from 72 hours to
from 72 hours. That's inflation, man. That's Biden inflation, I guess, if you're being real fair about it. Like, Biden inflation means your 72-hour rule now becomes 6 to 8 months through your spokesperson. And some of that may come from the fact that now Dan has created a multi-agent bodyguard team, which is being reported by NBC. 20 agents. There are people who saw this happen in Phoenix. They were utterly unimpressed, not interested in seeing a deputy director. Did you ever deal with a deputy director ever in the FBI?
No, never dealt with
it's
deputy, just the director.
Right. Did you deal with the director?
Yeah, Christopher Wray visited FBI Omaha, and we had to assist with his protective detail.
That's right.
And arrange for him to arrive and have no lapse with the gate. You know, it has to be like opened up, no stoppage in the caravan because apparently he was under threat. He had to have a private elevator open for him.
This was what state?
Nebraska.
Yeah, so people in Nebraska at any moment might like RPG, just like I've seen in Clear and Present Danger in Colombia, right? I mean, that's a real possibility. So you got to be careful about that. I think what the new Bongino rule was actually summed up in a very classic. Was it a 1990s movie? Was it 90s or early 2000s? I think it was like 1990s.
I think Clear and Present Danger was in the 90s. Maybe
well, that was in the 90s. No, I was thinking of somebody else. One of the greatest detectives on
that's
the
90s
silver
for
screen.
Sure.
Okay, this is the new Bongino rule. Okay, and I want you guys to digest it. It's not necessarily just six to 8 months. I think this is best done by the legendary actor Jim Carrey.
Cops drain it?
Yes, this morning.
If I'm not back in 5 minutes, just wait longer.
There they are.
Yeah.
They got it. They
Look,
nailed
this
it.
is no different than the climate alarmists, the climate pagans. Look, the world didn't end after 10 years. Just wait longer. It'll happen. It'll happen.
Eventually, you'll always be right. Here's the best part. Midterms. You want to make a prediction? Do they keep the House?
No, they lose.
Okay, what happens when you lose the House?
They impeach Donald Trump on day one. Day one. They won't wait 6 to 8 months.
They've already introduced impeachment. It's just not getting voted on because they're not in charge. This is what's at stake, folks, here. No question in my mind. But if I'm not back in 5 minutes, just wait a little longer. Here's the new Bongino rule. I'm just going to give it to you again. That was the Ace Ventura version. Here's the spokesperson version.
I'm saying we're going to apply a new Bongino rule to this because you're talking about turning probably the most massive aircraft carrier in the world, which takes a long, long time. New Bongino rule is to wait 6 to 8 months before you see results.
I think the DOD is a larger aircraft
he wasn't in
carrier.
the Navy. Like, Jim was not in the military. I don't think he knows how long it takes to turn an aircraft carrier around.
I think you can turn it relatively quickly. I mean, I appreciate the analogy, but
they have side thrusters and stuff too, man. I mean, you know how I know? I've been underneath Navy ships as a diver doing hull searches. And if you put your arm inside there, it's the scariest shit I've ever done in my entire life. Hands down. I've dove in the darkness and I don't like it. I don't like dark water. But the scariest thing I've ever done is a hull search because you're on this ship and you've got your hands and you're upside down swimming downhill while upside down in the dark. And the only thing that is guiding you is the steel shank, this thing. This is like one of the weirdest things I've ever had to go do. They make you go through it to do dive school because theoretically you could go look for like explosives if they were enemy divers. So I'm in here like feeling this huge Navy ship that's in the harbor. And then you get to the part where they have these side thrusters because they actually can turn pretty quickly by sending it side or left or right. They divert the power from the screws to the side underneath. And there are these holes that go inside the hull. And you have to reach in there and like feel around. And there's props in there. And I don't know who's in the engine room. Scary as hell, reaching in total darkness while feeling completely disoriented into the side thrusters. You can turn an aircraft carrier like a lot better than 6. It doesn't take 6 to 8 months to turn an aircraft carrier. It might take 6 to 8 minutes. Let's be real. If it takes 5 minutes, look, just wait another 5 minutes. That's all I'm saying.
Just wait longer. Just wait. That's basically what we got to rely on. The DOD, which does have aircraft carriers in its possession, seems to be turning more nimbly than the FBI, which is far smaller as an actual overall agency. There's 38,000 employees in the FBI. I believe the DOD is like 3 million.
Yeah.
So why does the Department of Education, why does the Department of Defense, why does USAID, which is under Marco Rubio, little Marco with his little hands, they all seem to get it. They all seem to get shock and awe and let them fight it out in the courts. And you know what? We don't care about the courts. You and what army are going to stop us from doing what we want, except for the most important pillar, which is the Department of Justice / FBI. The FBI being the teeth on that attack dog, the ability to have a weaponized government, the ability to take away your freedom and your life at the end of a gun. And we're going to win hearts and minds with that when we have a 20-year proof of concept of failure in Afghanistan to show that did not work.
It don't work, man. It's straightforward. It's right up there. Again, they haven't just lost. They haven't just lost it. I played this earlier, but I'm going to play it again because we have a different audience on Friday than we do on the rest of the week sometimes. This is Glenn Beck. He was pretty rah-rah Trump. This is Steve Bannon. I feel like he's the rah-rah Trump guy, if there was one.
Our show is about rah-rah Trump.
Right.
It's the one thing they are furious about.
I'm pissed.
And Pam and Cash are as good as you get. What's the problem? Your audience the same way. They're steamed.
Oh, yeah. You can do an awful lot of stuff, but until you start putting bad guys in jail, I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
And you know a sense of urgency. It's not like we have this forever.
No.
I mean, if Hakeem Jeffries wins in 18 months, which is not outside the possibility because they raise $2 billion.
We're done.
They're going to impeach Trump right
We're
about.
done. So where is the DOJ? Okay, I know Cash quite well. I believe Cash. I don't know Pam. Okay, that I'm not throwing dispersions on her, but something's not right. Why aren't you unleashing? Is it the deep state has them by the throat?
I don't think so.
They outrank the deep state.
Yeah, that's right. I think the FBI has them because the FBI does the same thing to every single person that takes over. They let them know that the FBI is the most important thing. And you now are the bearer of that brand, and you must go forward and do it honorably. You can't do the thing you said because there's policies that will stop it, even though they know people. I'm showing you the chat right here. I am showing you the phone calls that came in. Kyle, I need some bullet points. I'm going into a meeting with the boss. What does that look like? What can I pitch him? Who can I say? Give me 5 guys you trust that would come in and help me do this stuff. Give me names of people that absolutely have to be removed day one. What would you do with this EAD? How would you handle this problem? Absolutely answered. Asked and answered, no questions asked. If you call me, I answered the phone every single time. I walked away from my kids. I walked away from events that were going on. I walked away from interviews that might have had to happen. Other work that was going on in my household. I left my wife and kids and went into the bathroom and talked on the phone where I could be private because every time this call came in, I took it. That's why I'm pissed. Because I know he knows better.
And the subject matter expertise that Newsmax or whatever cable news show is seeking that we would expect to be called for, not Russia's bombing Ukraine, but like an FBI malfeasance. Like, that's our lane. The subject matter expertise of the existing deep state, the administrative state, the career bureaucrats within the FBI is manipulating the Dan Bonginos and the Kash Patels when they get in there and giving them a misconception about what they can actually do. And I think that they just went in there with a wrong sort of mindset. They didn't go in there saying, I'm going to slash throats, put heads on pikes. They said, I think that there's enough good people here that if I come in and be the cool boss, that things will go well.
The problem is somebody said otherwise.
It is time for total personnel warfare.
There's no ambiguity in that expression. Personnel warfare is where the battle was fought. Dan got it. I know he did. He came in late to the game because he wasn't the first guy on there. But like I told Benny Johnson the same thing. When you get in there, you get one chance to touch a subject. Would you agree? You get one chance to set the tone for an interview. Well, what does that look like, Steve? Explain to people what I mean when I say you get one chance to set that first impression as law enforcement.
Well, when you sit down, when you actually do an interview with a person, the interface that you have with them, you can't project a good cop and then right away be bad cop because it's so inconsistent. It'll throw the person off. They're not going to be willing to have a conversation with you. You have to have a consistent persona in order to develop and facilitate trust and build some rapport. You have to establish that right away. And if you come in and you are schizophrenic in that, or you come in and the subject perceives you to be a pushover, you're not going to achieve the mission. The mission is you have to convince the person you're sitting across the table from that it is in their best interest to tell you something as close to the truth as what actually happened so that you can figure out if they are in fact in violation of the law. But if you are not representing that to them, then they lose respect for you. And the entire interview there's no point in doing it at that point. And it is established right away. As soon as you walk in, you explain who you are and why you're there, and we just get down to business. But if you get in there and you're talking about how cool guy you are, and you like to go and fly in Black Hawk helicopters and hang out with the FIFA president and shake hands with NHL legends, then there's no point in actually going forward. You're never going to achieve that mission.
In a more street cop manner, because I keep hearing let good cops be cops, which is nonsensical because FBI agents are not cops. Call 911. You're never going to get an FBI agent. Not ever, not once, 0 times in all of history has that happened. Here's what happens. You touch somebody and you want to put them in cuffs. You walk up to them and you set that tone. The first time they feel your hand touch them, that person gets to make a decision. Is today a day that I'm going to fight and see if I can get out of it because this person doesn't have it because it's Steve Friend and he's 5'7", 5'8", and he weighs $155 and he looks like I can take him? Or did Steve Friend just put some hands on me that feel like that guy does push-ups all day long and grip strength exercises, and if I try to do anything, he's going to take my throat and pull it out from the inside of my neck? Which guy am I dealing with? That first touch sets all the tone. When you walk up and you are nonchalantly holding a rifle and you say, hey man, we can do this the easy way, I'd prefer that, or we can do this the hard way, and by the way, I also love the hard way. And somebody makes a decision and goes, not today. Not today. Today I'm going to go into cuffs because I'm not about to get shot in the freaking forehead by a guy who looks like he just does like push-ups and double taps for fun.
This is a basic concept in leadership, and you would know it better being a military guy. It is far easier to come in too hard and back off than to come in soft and then try to harden up on people. That's why the substitute teacher gets rolled every single time in the elementary school class. Because
except the Keenan Peele version. I wish I had that pulled too. The Keenan Peele where he comes and he's like, I'm from the streets. I do that in the city. Where's AA Ron? That guy, right? Present that guy. Okay, the Keenan Peele skit is correct. You come in hard, people will be like, damn, there's a new sheriff in town. I better listen up. I may only have this guy for 8 hours, but he's in charge. I don't know how long you get a Kash Patel and a Dan to stand there. They came in soft and squishy and gentle and trying to bro out with people that Dan acknowledged were the enemy. It's not about arrests right now, folks. It is about personnel. So don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And anybody who's saying otherwise is lying to you. Let me give a quick read to my buddies over at Shield Arms for folks who are listening. If you guys have not seen, this is one of my favorite companies. This is also my new favorite gun gadget. It is freaking awesome. It's called the 9 Reloaded. Check them out. They're the exclusive dealer in the United States as far as I know. They're like $100, so they are not cheap. But if you're a female or you don't have strong hands or you don't have big hands and you don't like loading magazines, which sucks, I loaded like 400 rounds the other day, and it costs almost nothing. You're just like squeezing it. It's super easy. Leverage is on your side. ShieldArms.com, promo code Kyle. Save yourself like 5% on there. Check out their soft goods. Check them out in general. If you're looking for a new AR, if you're looking for a micro. Steve, do you know? I don't know. Steve, I'll go back off here. Steve, do you have their magazines yet for your little Glock or not yet?
No, for the 48, I got to get that. That's going to be
because it doubles your
soon to be purchased.
It's 50% of your capacity.
50%
it goes from 10 to 15.
Increase.
So anyway, check out Shield Arms, folks. The link's in the show description. We appreciate that. Okay, pitch AMRAD, and then I'm going to pitch a couple things for folks to see, and I'll give you a palate cleanse that will make you smile at least. I think what's accurate, which is that we can sit here and throw stones at our own house right now, the people that we expect to get done, because the other side is so hopelessly ridiculous. They might win if our people, it's our game to lose right now. That's why I think it's important to push them. All right, carry on. Give them the AMRAD.
AMRAD tomorrow, Saturday, 10:30 Eastern time on rumble.com/AMRADpod. You're going to do a Saturday grab bag. It's become sort of a tradition. Going to focus in on AI-powered bots that are helping with the playbook of entrapping people. It's been reported in Wired News, which should disturb everyone, and we're going to cover that as well as a whole bunch of other things. And allegedly, I'm going to be reaching into the grab bag to confirm whether or not I do have hands. So be sure to be there tomorrow, 7:30, 10:30 Eastern time.
Here's what's wrong. I think Andrew Schultz hits this. This is our palate cleanse.
This is the problem with Democrats. You can be weird or you can be pretentious, but you can't be both. And Democrats are weird and pretentious. For example, remember when there was like these stories of like the drag queens teaching kids how to read?
Yes.
And if a dad or mom goes, yo, why are there drag queens teaching kids how to read?
Don't call me homophobic, transphobic,
because
of that shit.
Explain that shit. I'm telling you, hey, I don't understand this and it makes me feel a little uncomfortable. And you're going, no one really cares about this. This is not a big deal. Right. What is you care about?
It's like shut up and dribble.
Shut your mouth and dribble. And the second you do that to the majority of the country, which is what you're doing, they start going, man, fuck these guys. Trump, fix this whole shit. These motherfuckers went too far. I can't even ask a question. When I do, they act like I'm stupid.
That's the answer. That's what needs to happen. And by the way, that's what people said in November. I want to see these guys get it done. I don't want to knock on them. I want them to do what they said they would do. Check us out on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Make sure you've liked the video if you're watching over there. YouTube, appreciate you guys being over there. We're seeing the audience grow. It's youtube.com/@Kyle Seraphin. Flag it, subscribe, and so on. The Sunday special will be available on Saturday. The sit down is available at KyleSeraphin.com if you guys want to join our locals channel. And lastly, Spotify, if you want to send somebody a link to the show and say, hey, check it out, KyleSeraphinShow.com. Very easy. Leave us a review, leave us a comment, do those things. We do appreciate that because I actually read them and you're seeing I'm responding to a lot of your comments. Whether or not you go back and look is another animal. I want to give you a little taste of what that Saturday sit down looks like because I think it actually may save some lives. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. This is me talking to Dale Whitaker. This is what we would call the bottom line up front. I'm not going to bait you with nonsense. If you don't watch it, this is the most important 60 seconds of that particular interview, and it goes on a long time and the mechanics are useful to understand. But if you don't catch anything else, listen to this and then tell people who are thinking about gold iris to check it out as well.
The entire gold industry is not ripe with fraud, but I can tell you what to look for that should ring some alarm bells and really scare you off from utilizing one of these. There is this segment of the industry, what I call, or what is known as the premium or exclusive. Those are two terms that are used interchangeably. Coin dealers that really perpetuate this. So the one big thing that you just need to, if you're going to watch this interview and you get to this point and you want to tune off or whatever, whatever. If you hear those terms used by a salesman, just hang up the phone. That's it. Right? Just be done with that. The target audience is specifically 50 plus conservative Christian.
Okay, that's what we did. That's what we talked about. If you guys know anybody that's a 50 plus conservative Christian, if they listen to podcasts, if they listen to Fox, if they listen to Newsmax or OAN or any of these things, and they've ever considered or they have already gotten into a gold IRA, they should listen to this. This is probably the third version that we've talked about. I find it absolutely critical to share this information because we expose really what the dark side is and whether or not we can prove that the people that are out there selling these things with their voices, with their audience, with their trust, whether I can prove that they know it or not, you should know it. Because there's a lot of people that have had their entire savings taken, and some of those people I can absolutely guarantee have taken their own lives because they didn't have the money to survive into their retirement. We are going to push that thing out there. In any case, thanks for joining me today on this Friday. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I hope you guys join us for the sit down at some point in time in the next week. And I hope you have some fun, get off the internet, do the regular things, go hang out with your kids and so on, or your grandkids. God bless you. See you again very soon.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.